your dreams.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today I'm just going to be talking about Furina's best weapons, what weapons you can equip on Furina. That's basically it. That's the video. If you happen to like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Also, by the way, do your own research. Don't just rely on me, rely on other sources of information out there. I'm going to start by talking about her best weapons and just slowly go down to the worst weapons that you can equip with her. Her best weapon is obviously going to be her BIS, the Splendid of Still Waters. It has crit damage as a substat at 88 at level 90 and 541 base attack. Whenever somebody equipped with this weapon loses HP or increases their HP, their elemental skill damage will be increased. You can get a max of 3 stacks of this weapon. When other party members lose HP, the equipping character will gain more HP. That HP increase is pretty viable for Furina since her elemental skill and her elemental burst damage does more damage whenever Furina has more HP. Also, Furina's elemental skill will also decrease your party's HP overall. Basically, whenever Furina is in Osaya form and uses her elemental skill damage will be increased even further with this weapon. Furina is also the only character that can really make use out of this passive since she's the only character that can decrease all of your party's HP. Crit damage substat is also pretty handy since Furina does scale off of crit rate. So if you do want extra crit damage on your Furina, you might have to consider pulling for this weapon, especially if you're trying to get over 200 crit damage. Overall, this weapon is pretty niche since Furina is basically the only character that can make use out of this weapon. I would never recommend pulling on the weapon banner unless you have the funds to pull on that weapon banner. Next best weapon for Furina is the Festering Desire. Now, the problem with this weapon is majority of the new players will not have access to this weapon because you can only get this weapon through years ago during an Albedo event. More specifically, the Dragon Spine event. Whenever Dragon Spine was first introduced, I think it was around 1.6, I think. Festering Desire has an energy recharge substat 45 at level 90 and the base attack is 509. R5, it increases elemental skill damage by 32% and elemental skill crit rate by 12%. Energy recharge substat is pretty handy to reach Furina's burst a little bit more quickly if you're running Furina as the solo Hydro. It also increases elemental skill damage, something that Furina needs since basically the meat of her kit is her elemental skill. So if you've been playing Genshin since 1.6, congratulations, you have a pretty good weapon for Furina. But for those that relate to the party, I'm sorry. I doubt Hoyoverse is ever going to rerun this weapon because they are very cheap and scummy like that. Third best weapon for Furina is the Primordial Jade CUTTER. Crit rate substat at 44% and the base attack is 541. Passive of this weapon is pretty simple, increases the HP by 20%. and additional provides an attack bonus based on the wielder's max HP. If you are going to use this weapon on Furina, I would definitely recommend a crit damage circlet. Since Furina also scales off of crit rate and this weapon is providing even more crit rate, she's going to have more than enough crit rate. And with the additional HP bonus that she gets from the weapon's passive, her elemental skill and her elemental burst will deal even more damage. The thing about this weapon is that it's a limited weapon banner and there really isn't any character that has this weapon as a signature weapon. So you might have to wait a bit if you want to pull for this weapon. But if it does happen that this weapon is sitting in your inventory with no use and you are planning to pull for Furina, then, congratulations. You have a pretty good weapon for Furina, the third best weapon. Fourth best weapon for Furina is the Light of Foliar Incision. I'll just call it LOFI for short. Now, if you're going to be using this on Furina, you're most likely going to be using this just as a stack stick since the crit damage on this is 88 at level 90. The base attack is 541. If you want more crit damage on Furina, then you should probably use this weapon. Furina isn't really going to make too much use out of that passive. Like I said, you're only really using this just for a crit damage stat stick. If you're just bored of using I'll Hate Them and you want to use Furina with more crit damage, then just equip this weapon on Furina and there you go. Next weapon I'm going to talk about is the Battle Pass weapon, the new Battle Pass weapon, also known as the Wolf Fang. This weapon is perfect for characters that are just elemental skill or elemental burst bots, and that's basically what Furina is at C0. Since you're basically going to be using Furina for elemental skill and elemental burst, this weapon increases the damage of the elemental skill and burst, the crit rate of it more specifically. The weapon does have a substat of crit rate at 27% at level 90 and 509 base attack. If you are going to use this weapon on Furina, I would suggest that you get a crit damage circlet since this weapon has a crit rate substat. Overall, pretty good weapon on her. If you happen to have this weapon, then use this on Furina. You can never really go wrong using a battle pass weapon, in my opinion. Next best weapon for Furina is the Qiqi. You're most likely going to be using this weapon just to increase the HP on Furina since her elemental skill and burst scale off of her HP. Whenever Furina uses her elemental skill, she will get an elemental mastery boost. If you want to play Bloom Furina for whatever reason, then I guess you can use this weapon on her. I don't know how good she will be in Bloom. Not to mention we already have a very good Bloom specific character, Nilou. Anyways, this weapon is basically going to be pimping out her HP. You're only going to be using this weapon to increase Furina's HP. Next up, pimping weapon is a free weapon. You can get this weapon by fishing, and that is the Ferryman. I don't want to butcher the first part. Anyways, the Ferryman does have the energy recharge substat, 45% at level 90, 509 base attack. It increases the elemental skill crit rate and will also increase the energy recharge after using an elemental skill. So with the ER substat and the ER passive, Furina is going to be getting to her burst as quickly as she can. Pretty good weapon if you're going to be running Furina solo Hydro. Since you can fish for this weapon, it's a pretty great free weapon, especially if you haven't played since 1.2. You missed out on the Festering Desire, so this weapon is basically your next cope. But nonetheless, it is a pretty good free weapon for Furina. Anybody that's free to play, I would suggest that you use this weapon for Furina. Get this weapon. I know fishing is boring, but it's definitely going to be worth it for free to plays. Next weapon we got is the Haran Gappaku Futsu. This weapon has a crit rate substat, 33% at level 90, 608 base attack. I would recommend that you use a crit damage circlet if you are going to equip this weapon on Furina. Passive of this weapon is the user will gain 12% elemental damage bonus. And whenever an elemental skill is used by other party members, you get a stack of the wave spike. You can only get a max of 2. And when Furina uses her elemental skill, she consumes those stacks and she'll get a normal attack bonus for quite some time. I can only really recommend this weapon if you're going to be using Furina as a main DPS. It doesn't really increase her elemental skill. It increases her elemental damage bonus. It doesn't increase her HP. You're basically going to be using this if you don't want to pull for her main BIS. But if you're just bored of using Ayato for whatever reason and you just want to use a main DPS Furina, then use this weapon. Next weapon we got upcoming is the Mist Splitter, another main DPS weapon. Just like with the Haran, I can only recommend using this weapon if you're going to use Furina as a main DPS and you're just bored of using Ayaka. It has the crit damage substat at 44% at level 90 and the base attack is 674. Alright, so that's gonna be the end of this video. I know I missed some other weapons like the Favonius Sword, Harbinger of Dawn, the Dockhands Assistant. Favonius Sword is pretty good. I mean, you can never really go wrong with using a Favonius Sword. I mean, it's okay. If you happen to have a spare one just lying around, I guess you can use it on Furina. Harbinger of Dawn is kind of a cope main DPS weapon, right? You get more crit rate if your HP is 90% or higher. That's basically it. And the Dockhands Assistant is, you get more elemental mastery after you heal other party members. But we already have Nilou, who's more centric to Bloom, so I don't really think you need to build a Bloom Furina unless you just want to have fun. Anyways, end of the video. Let me know what you guys think. Any comments, concerns, let me know in the comments. If you happen to like this video, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.